Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom. In this episode, we're going to go into part 2 of how to play within the Matrix. Now, for some of you that don't know or haven't seen any of my videos, my name's Michael, and I used to be former military. And one of my jobs was to, train certain people, especially in the martial arts, and that consists of a lot of things. So let's get into it. When you're playing within the Matrix, they talk about, well, if you've seen the movie, the martial arts, right? Keanu Reeves gets hooked up and he's going for hours learning all these different martial arts styles, and then he goes against Morpheus, so on and so forth. Well, one of the things that I was known for, was martial arts in the military because of my out-of-the-box thinking on how to defeat certain opponents. Because, there's going to be people bigger than you and smaller than you and your same size or more skilled than you or whatever the case may be. And you always have to look for your advantage, your leverage in the situation. Well, how do you apply this to the Matrix? Well, I'll give you a short story. When I was younger, my mother always used to tell me that one day you're going to meet somebody that's bigger than you, smarter than you, stronger than you, and they're going to kick your ass, so on and so forth, etc. And she's always tried to do certain things to either teach me a lesson or to flex certain powers, whatever the case may be, because, that's just the individual who she is. And I can't say I wouldn't be the person I am today without all those lessons. I mean, I think it was in high school I got caught with, doing a couple things that were not too, let's just say, good to do, right? Because people like to experiment with like things like smoking and stuff like that, not the cigarettes, but the other stuff. So she called the cops and she had them scare me, so on and so forth, in hopes that I would never do it again. Long story short, I ended up in the military, etc., playing with bombs and explosives for a living. So let's not even get started on that. However, one of the things I wanted to show people when I was teaching them martial arts was the same philosophies I learned from styles like Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's style of martial arts. In other words, to take what's useful and useful to you and apply it and discard the rest. Because just like school or college, you can learn a lot of things in class. And if you haven't seen class, please go check it out. It's my online lecture of ways to think better, so on and so forth. But you can learn a lot of things in class, but not everything might pertain to you. However, you can take the little gold nuggets, as Tai Lopez says when he does his speed reading, to, better yourself and enhance yourself. So how did I get people to, think outside the box? Well, there was a movie called The Wolf of Wall Street, and there's a famous line in there, especially at the end, that everybody knows, where he goes, "I want you to sell me this pen," right? So I used to go to my martial arts students and I used to hand them a pen, something similar to this. And I said, "I want you to show me what you can do with this pen. What makes this pen so valuable, dangerous, or whatever?" And some people would say, "Okay, well, I could turn it on and I could click it on. And what's it called? I could write with it, so on and so forth. I could use it as a self-defense device. I don't know if you could see this pen, but it has a little stylus here, so you could use it like on a touch screen, so on and so forth, right? If you were a doctor or a pilot, or let's say you were writing in the dark, I'm going to put this up close. You can see that it actually illuminates, so on and so forth, and you can light and see and write in the dark without disturbing others. And then, of course, there's other things like communication that it could be used for if you know things like Morse code. So if I was doing Morse code, you would understand what I was saying if you were trained in that skill or ability. Now, one of the things that I wanted to teach them was, what are the different ways you could apply the same tactics with the same tools in martial arts to everything else, right? Let's say you are a bouncer at a club, right? Because you needed extra money, you're law enforcement or military, and that's your side hustle. So on the weekends, you bounce at a club. You would get a pen like this. And normally, if I was doing the training there, I would give you a pen like this, starting off with normally a plastic pen, working your way up to a metal one, so on and so forth. But this would be used as different ways to get people's attention. You've seen them in the club where they shine a light, so on and so forth, etc., or they're walking through, or if you ever seen Harry Potter and they go Loomis, and the end of the wand lights up, so on and so forth, so you could see your way through the club in a dark room or whatever. If you were in a fight, now this is where I would take the tools from martial arts. There is a staff with it's called horsehair, but it used to be horsehair, but it's like this red hair at the end of it, and there's a dagger at the tip. The red part of the hair was used to, well, distract the eye, because the eye can only see and keep track of certain things. So since your eye was focused on the part of the hair that was hanging off the staff, normally about 6 to 8 inches below the blade, when they're twirling the staff around, so on and so forth, your eye is focused on the red hair moving around. And when you go to block or dodge, you're normally off by 6 to 8 inches. Therefore, you already been struck by the dagger at the end of the spear. So the same thing can be applied with something like this. If you study the Filipino martial arts of Kali, when you turn this on, it has a light on it. So people will normally pay attention to the light, which gives your opposite hand, your free hand, the ability to move, so on and so forth. Because let's say you're fighting and you have this in your hand, so on and so forth, their eyes are going to be focused on the light, especially in a dim environment. So if I were to raise my hand up here, their eyes would focus here, which leaves my empty hand open, right? Or I could click it off and now distract them, because their eye went to one place, but since the light turned off, their vision went back to the opponent, as they would say, right? So it would throw people off balance in a fight. And once these people got proficient, I would let them go out and try it, so on and so forth. And, they would come back, oh my God, this worked, etc. I was like, no, duh, it works. It worked 2,000 years ago and it still works today. So these are the things that you can do when you're applying stuff to the matrix. Look at everything, right? Look at everything about this pen. How can it be used inside and out, right? What's so special about it? Even down to the color that is used, right? Because color has meaning if you're into things like marketing or the arts, right? Because the color blue means trust, the color green means prosperity, so on and so forth, right? Or neutral colors mean that you're, in a neutral state, you're trying to blend in, so on and so forth. Black is mysterious. Red normally means danger or excitement, and all these things have meaning. So if you're trying to walk through the matrix just to get by and you're complaining about things, you're not seeing all the things that are occurring around you that can be used in different ways, right? For instance, cayenne pepper is not just put on food, but you could ingest cayenne pepper with about 6 to 8 ounces of warm water. And I would say roughly a teaspoon or a tablespoon if you're brave, so on and so forth. And once you ingest it, it not only lowers your blood pressure, but you can also use this as a first aid emergency thing. Let's say you have a cut on your finger, you could throw cayenne pepper on it and it will stop the bleeding, similar to like what QuikClot does in the military when you get injured, so on and so forth. So when you're going and playing within the matrix, make sure you understand not only everything that's going on, but the forces that are around you. If they push, then you pull. If they pull, then you push. If they're pulling you in order to push you, then go with it and then do the counter when they react, right? So they're pulling you in, so on and so forth, in hopes to throw you off balance, because let's say they have a wrestling background, right? And one of the things they do in wrestling, especially when they're in the clinch, is they'll jerk, right? Or they'll pull and then push to throw you off balance or to make you step somewhere, right? If you understand what they're doing, especially with the forces at hand, well, then you know how to anticipate your next step. Think of it like a game of chess. There's a gentleman out there by the name of Patrick Bet-David that talks about your next 5 moves and how grandmasters and chess masters normally think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 moves ahead, sometimes even 12, depending on how skilled they are. Now, when I'm teaching these people, and I was teaching my students, so on and so forth, I always took baby steps. Why? Because although they wanted everything, right? If you ever seen the movie The Karate Kid, oh, I want to do this and that and blah, 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 blah. You can't start there. But if you remember the movie with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, where he says everything is kung fu, just like in the Matrix, where he gets them to open his mind, or well, I should say Morpheus gets Neo to open his mind to the reality and the distractions with the girl in the red dress. You have Jackie Chan that tells him to take off his jacket, to throw it on the floor, to pick it back up, to hang up the jacket, so on and so forth. But in essence, what he was doing was teaching him martial arts without him actually knowing, by also doing everyday tasks so that he was compounding the training, similar to using an entendre in English, right? One word or one sentence can mean one, two, three, sometimes multiple things, right? Same thing with the training in martial arts with the Karate Kid. He took off the jacket, so on and so forth. Also, when his mother showed up, she told him, pick up the jacket, so on and so forth. Not realizing that that was the exercise that he was doing the whole time, developing not only good habits, but the movements necessary to continue within martial arts to get to the next level. So remember, the next time you hear somebody say, sell me this pen because they're quoting The Wolf of Wall Street, think of this video. And if you got anything out of this, go ahead and smash that like button, and don't forget to follow me for more tips, because we have a couple more parts to go, and I am so excited for you guys. Till next time, my friends, take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.